The perils of moral purity. In the Arthurian cycle of stories, one of the main characters is Sir Galahad. He is the illegitimate son of Sir Lancelot du Lac and Lady Elaine of Corbenic, and he's renowned for his gallantry and purity as the most perfect of all knights. Galahad is the one who leads the quest for the Holy Grail. Just as with Arthur's conception, there is also deception involved in the conception of Galahad. Lancelot is deceived into sleeping with Princess Elaine of Corbenic, who has been made to look like Guinevere, who was Lancelot's mistress. According to some legends, Galahad's maternal grandfather was descended from Joseph of Arimathea, who was supposedly entrusted with the Holy Grail, and Galahad is the one destined to recover it. He becomes a Knight of the Round Table, and, to cut a long story short, he is revealed as the one destined to retrieve the Grail. It also turns out that Galahad is capable of performing miracles, such as banishing demons and healing the sick. When he dies, at a time of his own choosing, he ascends into heaven, maybe bodily. So Galahad is seen to have lived a pure and sinless life. In Alfred Lord Tennyson's poem, Sir Galahad, Tennyson has him say, "My good blade carves the casques of men, my tough lance thrusteth sure. My strength is as the strength of 10, because my heart is pure." And again, "I never felt the kiss of love, nor maiden's hand in mine." Purity, naturally, includes never having been with a woman. Interestingly, a later poem by William Morris, still in the 19th century, note how the 19th century loved these romantic, heroic tales. He paints Galahad as a much more complicated, more nuanced figure, and frankly more human, wrestling with his conflicting desires between the ideal and the human. He paints a rather lonely figure. "Night after night your horse treads down alone the sere damp fern. Night after night you sit holding the bridle like a man of stone. Dismal, unfriended, what thing comes of it?" A man of stone, dismal and unfriended. In Robert Jordan's epic fantasy series, The Wheel of Time, there's a character called Galahad, who is clearly based, in my opinion, on Galahad from the Arthurian tales. Galahad is the son of a queen and becomes one of the White Cloaks, the children of light. He is irritatingly pure. He always does the right thing, or tries to, no matter who it hurts. Slowly, though, throughout the course of this epic series of books, he gradually becomes more human and is forced to compromise his morals. Moral purity has no place in an imperfect world. In Nikos Kazantzakis' controversial novel, The Last Temptation of Christ, Jesus is depicted as a carpenter, just as in the tradition. He's not a particularly good craftsman, though. He just carries out basic jobs like, making crosses for the Romans on which to crucify people. Now, I have read some commentators who claim that although Jesus was severely and painfully tempted in Kazantzakis' view of the story, he nevertheless remained sinless, and that this was Kazantzakis' intention. However, I think that's based on a very narrow and individualistic view of what we might call sin. In this story, Jesus actually provides the means for the Romans to punish people such as zealots and potential messiahs. I would suggest that this makes him morally compromised. Then there's his relationship with Mary Magdalene, who's a kind of composite figure in Kazantzakis' story. In this novel, Mary becomes a prostitute out of despair when Jesus rejected her in favour of his mission. He's tormented by this. In one scene in the book, Jesus, filled with shame and self-reproach, realising that he's partly responsible for what's become of Mary because he rejected her in the past, he stands outside the house where Mary is with several men, and he watches her with them, deeply tormented by what he sees. This sight causes him great anguish, as it symbolizes both the human desire that he suppresses and the consequences of his own actions. There's no possibility of moral purity here. There's no straightforward mission here which, like Galahad's quest for the Holy Grail, will leave him morally untouched. This ideal, as I pointed out a moment ago, was challenged in later interpretations of the Galahad story. Doing the right thing, no matter who it hurts, is not moral purity, because there can be no moral purity in this world. In the last temptation, Jesus accepts the mission that God forces upon him, but it's at a great cost, and not only to Jesus himself, but also to others, like Mary Magdalene. Doing the right thing is not morally unambiguous. In an imperfect world, sometimes doing the right thing means doing what is objectively the wrong thing, as Galahad found out in the Wheel of Time. And doing the right thing can sometimes have terrible consequences, as Jesus in Kazantzakis' novel comes to realize. This is why, or at least partly why, people who seem to hold themselves above us the scum, can appear cold and inhuman, like stone. Moral purity and compassion are incompatible. Moral purity can lead to doing the right thing, no matter who it hurts. There's no room for compassion here. Compassion would be a weakness. Or else, as in the case of Kazantzakis' Jesus, it tears the person apart and leads them to the edge of madness, if not over it.